People don't change behavior just because you throw data at them. They change when they trust the messenger.
Well, welcome back to another episode of Root Notes. Wes and I are really happy to have you with us. And boy, you've picked a good episode to listen to because we have a very special guest, Dr. Michael Forde. Michael, I'm so pumped to have you with us because we go really far back.
Yes, sir.
So Michael was a student in our program. He did his master's in public health here at Campbell University, and then did a doctorate in public health at George Washington. Shout out to Len Goldman and the team there running a really incredible public health program in D.C. You've had an incredible number of jobs that we'll talk about, but I want to just check in on my former student, just see how you're doing as a person. How you doing, man?
I am doing so well, and I'm blessed immensely just to, first of all, be here on this with you.
As soon as we started talking about actually doing a podcast, I wanted to reach out to you because from the moment that I met you I got a chance to listen into your dissertation defense. Just every time I've ever interacted with you, you bring such a charismatic energy into the room, into the conversation, and an optimism. Like that smile is always there. Yeah. But you bear the title of Director of Health Equity, working there with Aetna in the state of Maryland. And this is a tough time. I know a lot of folks who work in health equity that are really struggling right now.
Yeah.
And so I was dying to talk to you because I'm just curious how you're navigating this moment as this super positive, energetic guy in what has been for the past few months really tough space to do the kind of work that I know you care about. Yes. So talk to me about how you're navigating this moment, man.
Man, okay, well, I love that setup. And I'll be honest with you, every day is different. But I will say the thing that keeps me going is the people. It's the people and the stories of those people. Talking to individuals who I work with that are direct facing with members, or they're talking with some providers and how they can work better in their systems. It's just these stories of, hey, you were able to help me. And I always feel like that one story is enough. Sometimes we look at numbers and metrics and we're really trying to measure, especially in public health, the effectiveness of what intervention you do. But sometimes you have to go back and realize that paperwork is not the same as purpose work, which I find more in the stories of those people. So that's what really keeps me going, the stories of the people.
Yeah, it's an interesting time. I mean, I'm glad that you said this explicitly, but so I was asked by a department in our state government that will go unnamed to do a talk on equity as a lens for strategic decision making. And I was like, absolutely, let me do this. So it was on the book for like 10 months before I'm about to do it. Well, the political climate changed in that 10 months. And so I'm about to do this talk. The week before, I have this Zoom call just to talk about logistics of the call and everything. And they're like, by the way, if you could, now I'm doing a talk that's called Equity as a Lens for Decision Making. And they're like, if you could not use the word equity, that'd be great. You know what the title of this is, right? So I'm curious, like in your work, how are you talking about this work that you care about so much, right?
It's really the day-to-day of just sitting down to see how we can better reach our members or our patients, number one. Number two, really including, as we said, not being afraid to say the word equity, and making sure we're looking at culturally appropriate initiatives, culturally appropriate tools, culturally appropriate conversations. I was in a call today, actually, with one of my coworkers, and we were just speaking about how to better tailor certain interventions in the office for Black patients, especially Black male patients. There is this historical cultural tie to why some Black men do not trust doctors. You have this culturally relevant tie to healthcare. And so a lot of what I do is just working on those templates and those messaging tools to ensure that, number one, people feel heard, they feel listened to, people feel appreciated that you're trying. But then there's a gift in togetherness, if that makes sense. When someone feels like you're trying to work with them, you're not talking at them, you're not preaching at them, but you're really trying to say, hey, I get it. Well, no, actually, I don't get it. I don't. But let me try to better understand. That's where that cultural humility comes into play, where you have to look at your own experiences and say, hey, I might be inherently stereotypical, but let me try to work on those biases that are both, evident in nature and maybe those that are not as clear. So, boom, there we go. I'm going to land the plane with that one.
No, it's so powerful.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
One of the Wes and I get a chance to do a strategic planning facilitation there, probably near where you're at in Rockville, Maryland.
That's right.
And
It's 30 minutes.
right up this road. Okay, cool. Yeah, and so what it reminds me of is what was so neat about that facilitation is that we were working with a group that's doing advocacy work and service to families and individuals who have Down syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
And our facilitation included several adult self-advocates living with Down syndrome who were participating in the strategic planning. And I think it's just sort of the awareness that of the richness that was brought into the room because of inclusion, that so many folks who are scared of the idea of diversity, equity, and inclusion, you're just missing out on the richness that is this experience when you invite the voices into the room and listen. I mean, I think you're sort of catch there to go, like, I get it, or in many cases, I don't get it, and that's the point of us talking.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, you bring up such an interesting point about implicit biases, and even keying back to the strategic planning initiative that we did, as David was describing. They have this culture of inclusivity where everyone comes to the table and has a voice, and even within that, when we're working with them, some of the folks who are part of sort of the Hispanic SIG, like the smaller group, when they're talking about, do you feel like you're included in these sorts of things, they're like, yeah, but when you use things like Google Translate to create these documents that you send out to us, we can tell that. And when we see that, we think, that's not really made for us, right? Like you made an effort. Now, the beautiful thing about that is they create a space that is inclusive enough that they feel comfortable saying that, right? To say, I know you're well intentioned. Here's what I'm experiencing in this.
Right.
That's not the case everywhere.
Right.
But it sounds like the work that you're doing is pushing sort of that. How do we create this inclusive space for these conversations to happen? And I wonder sort of what your experience has been like. Are you getting to work with the provider side of things, or bringing them in to say, look, let me bring you into this conversation as we're trying to understand how to best sort of bring this messaging to you, bridge this gap? Like, tell me a little bit about that.
That's so funny you asked that question, because that's the exact conversation I had today. It led to what our providers doing in the offices, right? We have a number of different providers across our network who, they are being up to par in what we consider class, which is culturally, linguistically appropriate services, and making sure that the patient feels heard, the patient feels advocated for, the patient feels listened to. But as we know, you can still be good and still even be great, but there's always room for more improvement. Life is this continuum of constant knowledge and learning. So sitting down and looking at some of the things that providers are doing already, and I'm like, this is really excellent work. Here's how we can make it even better. And so with that, one of the key items is going back to that theme of togetherness. There have been some, let's say, individuals who may really feel excited about the fact that their provider said, hey, high blood pressure will conquer this together. Hey, diabetes will conquer this together. But I feel like when it comes to really knowing who you are in terms of getting trained, in terms of culture, humility training, or, making sure that health equity is not just a compliance checkbox. That's the
Yeah.
culture that
Mm.
I believe providers need to go into. Because a lot of providers, including my wife, excellent when it comes to not just the care, but understanding the patient. But I think we not just at Aetna, but nationwide, health equity all across the board, we have to understand that it's more than us just doing the great work, but changing and shifting the culture where it's not just it's secondhand. It's really becoming who you are. And so just going back to your original question, how is it being addressed? Conversations like this, and,
Yeah.
and just saying,
Yeah.
you all are doing amazing, but here's what we can do every year to improve the way that the patient sees you, and the self-efficacy. I learned that word for Dr. Tillman, self-efficacy that they can establish to be able to conquer their goals. Boom. That's another boom.
I
Well,
absolutely love that.
let me share some love back with you because, I mean, when you're talking about what we learn in conversation,
Mhm.
your experience. So I teach a course called Rural Health, and we get into all kinds of aspects of what in the field we call intersectionality, right? And it's these, so if you're thinking about rural communities have everything else going on in them. So how does rural context intersect with poverty, or how does it intersect with religious pluralism, or how does it intersect with race? And one of the things that we spend a good amount of time is talking about racism and the way in which that has a history in rural places too, and maybe even especially. But that class has never been the same after your cohort
Really?
of students, because what happened was I sort of did this whole lecture thing,
Yeah.
and then we didn't have enough time to finish the conversation or really to even talk about it as a class. And so I said, well, we're going to pause right here, and next week when we come back together, I'm going to bring no notes. And what we're going to do instead is just open it up for people if you want to talk about your personal experience. And I remember I'll talk about you every single year now, not by name, but I will if you want me to.
You have full privilege, please.
All right, I will from here on out. But no, I talk about the fact that you shared a story about your father
Yes.
and his experience at your home,
Yes.
your family
Yes.
home,
Yes.
of essentially being profiled. He
Yes.
was out and just sort of working on the house, and as a result of that, was stopped by people who didn't think he belonged there, because he didn't fit the type they were expecting. But what really, I share that story on the class day where we just open it up.
Yeah.
And I think I do a pretty good lecture
Yeah.
about some of these things, but you talking to your room of classmates about the experience that you had with your family showed me, oh my goodness, the personal stories need to have time to breathe and have a spotlight. And this is where it happens. And I think, I know you're passionate about storytelling, and I just wanted to give you back that you'd give them a gift to every successive class that get a chance to sort of share their experiences because of your story.
I have to say, the fact that you remember that story and tell it every year, and I had no idea that this was happening for the past how many years, amazing, amazing, amazing. I'm actually very touched by the fact that you tell that story, because yes, that did happen, and for more context, my dad was working on the HVAC unit outside of our home in North Carolina. We were living in Clayton, North Carolina, and it was probably 7 p.m., 7:30. It couldn't have been later than that. I go outside, check on him, Dad. I'm like, what, 10, 11? Dad, do you need help? What am I going to do? Really? Just maybe hold the flashlight. And he was like, no, son, I got it. I go back inside. The next thing you know, the cops were called because a strange black man was doing something out of the ordinary on a house that I see across from me. Well, let me just tell you that those individuals who we ended up finding out called the police, they had met us before, in the sense that they knew we were their neighbors. And they had kept their distance, right? And so we were like, okay, they know we're here, but if they don't want to engage, that's all right. Life
Right.
is cool.
Yeah.
We have other things to do. So when that all happened, it just, as a young kid, I didn't understand all the inner workings of racism and stereotyping. And first of all, I didn't understand what was happening. I didn't even have the terminology to name it. As I got older, then I started learning about these theories and historical
Yeah.
connotations and literature. And I'm like, whoa, time out. This is some of the same things that I experienced. And I didn't realize that it was as prevalent. I was naive, right? I was naive. I was innocent. My parents did a wonderful job trying to protect me from certain things until they couldn't anymore. My parents, first generation. First of all, I'm first generation American. They're straight from the Caribbean. My dad's from St. Lucia. My mom's from Dominica. So they came here to make sure that I had the best outcome in life, which means that if there's anything that could make my mind more stressed out or, my life more stressful, they're going to protect that. And so just to say, hey, thank you for keeping that story alive. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, it's in the room that day when you told that story. The reason I keep telling it is because you could feel people who had responded to the theory and the slides that I'd shared about the big ideas from a sort of sociology standpoint about what racism is and how it affects us. And then you personalized it and you said, no. Like, let me share the story of me as a child confronting this thing. And it wasn't based in theory. It's me like just trying to spend time with my dad. Right. And racism interfering with that.
Yeah.
And it moved the room, and it still today moves the room and gives people also permission to tell their stories. Yeah. So just know that you and your family continue to give us gifts.
Thank you. Thank you. Wow.
Yeah. And your storytelling ability, I mean, it's always been there, right? Like it was there when you entered our program, and it's there today, stronger than ever, right?
Dr.
The stories
because he made me do an oral examination for public health, and I think that beat it into me to learn how to speak properly. I'm just joking.
Well, he's still torturing students that way. I mean, every single semester. Yeah.
So just for context, so for listeners, so I have students come in and basically do an essay prompt live in person on the spot. And thank you, Michael, for endorsing that for all the students who, every current student hates it, but it's good for you, right?
It is. It is.
But seriously though, your ability to tell a story is, it's excellent. And not everybody has that ability, and you use it in such a positive way, right? You're using social media, you're using your platform, you're using everything at your disposal to tell those stories to try to have impact. And I wonder, sort of, is your dad, is your mom a great storyteller? Like, did that come from them? You're talking about how they raised you, and I just wonder, is there like a legacy here of that?
Wow. Well, I can say that they're very social. They're very social. My mom is more introverted in a sense, but she's still just as social behind the scenes. And growing up, my dad would just love meeting people. I mean, to the point I have early memories of going into Food Line, right? And Food Line, for context, for those who are watching, it's not in the Northeast. So I can tell you that because I've been moving. But
grocery store, yeah.
Grocery retail, or grocery store, really, just a grocery store, local grocery store. And, I'd go inside Food Line with my dad, and he's saying hi to random people and good morning to random people. They do not know him. Okay. Let me make that clear. And he's just like, hey, have a great day. And I think what I do get is that social aspect of it's okay to be kind. It's okay to be positive. It's okay to smile. Look at me now. I mean, so, with that, I think the storytelling element came from the fact that I really do have an affinity to people.
Yeah.
On social media recently, my newest path is just sharing the stories of individuals who have experienced something in the healthcare system, whether it has been something that has been life-changing, or maybe it's evoking more emotion of just thinking. These are stories that are now living online, and others are commenting and engaging and saying, hey, I've had this happen to me too. And the most recent one that has done really well within the online community is the story of Dr. Shalon Irving. Now, Dr.
Yeah,
Shalon
please
Irving,
talk about that.
she
Yeah.
was a CDC epidemiologist. She had her PhD. She worked to fight health inequity. She dedicated her life to fight structural racism. And she went to the hospital, had a textbook delivery, according to her mother and according to textbook delivery. But she reported high blood pressure. She reported not feeling well. She reported, doctors, hey, I don't think I need to be sent home right now. They sent her home. She repeatedly would go back just to say, hey, I know I've been here before, but something still isn't right, and I know my body. Doctor sent her back home. And while feeding her infant, passed out, was declared brain dead, never woke up, passed away. Maternal mortality in the Black health community, it's a problem where I share a statistic. Black women are 3 times more likely to die than their white female counterparts. But what makes this even more interesting is that when you zoom in, you'll find that Black women who are very educated and have college degrees actually still have worse outcomes than white women who are just at the high school level. And that's not to minimize the, level of education for the white woman, but it is to maximize the fact that there is an issue, and there is an equity issue.
I had a chance to talk to some folks in the research, federally funded research area, and one of the things that I realized is that that's such a nameless, faceless thing. But my son, who has Fragile X syndrome, benefits from the research being done. And so it's like this thing, our systems ultimately are humans. And so when people hear your story, just like when they hear my son's story, the story of our family, when they hear you tell the story of Dr. Irving, it connects on a human level that allows you to be able to see that this nameless, faceless thing actually has real heart. And if we can connect to it on that level, maybe we'll be less defensive about the systems and help the systems work for more of the humans that, honestly, my experience has been most people really care about. People don't want Dr. Irving's story to be true. Mm-hmm. But in order to do something about that, you got to acknowledge it, you got to hear it, and then you've got to be motivated to say, okay, let's fix these systems. And so I think what you're doing is fantastic. And I think, to be honest, it's a core function of public health now.
Yes.
We've got to look at it as a core skill. Can we tell the stories that move communities towards health?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I wonder, you have been working in communications in various capacities. And I wonder if you learned any of these lessons at the complete nexus of a lot of challenge, which was you were working as a communication specialist at the NIH, working with none other than Dr. Fauci's team, during this little thing that we might remember called the Great Pandemic, the COVID-19 response, and you were working in communications in that office.
Right.
I wonder if you might share with us any lessons that were learned that might shape the way that you're thinking about that kind of issue and the need for good communications to this day. I imagine it was an interesting time to be there.
Oh man, yes. So during COVID, I did have the wonderful opportunity to be part of a greater federal response. So they had something called the COVID Inquiry Task Response Team, and I was part of that. And essentially, what it meant is that anything that came in, mail, phone calls, fax, letters, anything that came in related to COVID-19, screen them, read them, screen them, reply to them as appropriate, triage them to Dr. Fauci. And sometimes if he was really busy, which he was really, I would actually write a lot of emails and letters, and he'll sign off on it and they'll be sent out. But you asked me a very important question. What did you learn? What was your takeaway, right? And I can tell you this, and this actually, what I'm about to say, not just covers the Fauci experience with COVID-19, but a lot of what I said about public health messaging. People don't change behavior just because you throw data at them. They change when they trust the messenger. So I'll say it again. People don't change behavior just because you throw data at them. They change when they trust the messenger. Now, this was such an interesting time because the CDC, the FDA, the NIH were all having very closely knit but slightly different messages at the same time. And it was not necessarily misinformation, but it was just an evolving case of what is the best protocol for today. But at that time, you had a different administration that was actually almost overriding everything that was trying to be built from a scientific and public health perspective. Now, where am I going with this? The trusting the messenger. I would say during my communication time with the NIH, there'd be a good portion of individuals, that would, hey, say, thank you for giving me this clear-cut resource. Thank you for pointing me to this protocol. I appreciate it. You've done your job. I'm happy. I'm listening.
Yay!
But I cannot tell you how many individuals would write and communicate and correspond with our department about the most outrageous things to cure COVID-19. And when you ask them, where did you get this information from? I'm going to let you all imagine who in power of our nation has said certain things. And unfortunately, people did lose their lives. Their lives. That's something that is overlooked sometimes.
You're right. It's the sobering truth of this misinformation.
All in all, the season at the NIH, being a health communication specialist, working with Dr. Fauci and his team, it really taught me the importance of empathy and how to center credibility and connection before correction. I'll say that's what I'll leave you with on that part.
You're so right. I remember I was working on weekends as a relief epidemiologist, and I walk in, and the person that was really organizing our team said to me, "You're probably going to get some calls about the bleach thing." And I went, "What bleach thing?" Because I had not heard yet. And they were like, "Well, you need to watch this." And sure enough, throughout the day, I was talking to people. And the truth is that they were legitimately concerned, scared, and trying to find an answer. And in public health, we had a lot to say about this whole bleach thing, and for good reason. But what the people who were trying to get some sense of what to do I mean, it was completely relatable if we just stop and think about it for a second. It was a confusing time for those of us who have graduate degrees in this.
Yes. Yes.
So our general public, of course, it was a scary time. Of course, you're looking for an answer. And of course, if somebody that you trust in power says that something is helpful, you want to know if it's helpful. And so, I mean, you're right. It's the connection. It's really encouraging to me to hear that in that particular time, doing that particular job in DC, in that office, your sense of empathy was reinforced.
Yes.
That's beautiful, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, my friend, it has been the greatest treasure to just spend time with you,
Thank
man. It was a joy to teach you, and to see what you've accomplished is just, that's beyond words. So thanks for giving us a little bit of time. We like to wrap up these episodes with something we call detours worth taking.
Yes.
And this is just your opportunity to share anything that you're into, that you've been enjoying lately, that our listeners might also enjoy. So, Michael, do you have any detours worth taking?
So for music, there is PJ Morton's Cape Town to Cairo. It is a
All right. Tell us about it.
very global, soulful, and rooted album that is a cross between just this mixture of what I consider a mixture of musical culture. And that's really compared to the work that we do when we talk about culture and diversity and inclusion. And so you would have to listen to it for yourself to understand what I'm really, but Cape Town to Cairo, as I said, just think of like different musical elements coming together to make this really pure, as I said, soulful but global sound. And I think that's the best I can say to describe it. But also social media wise, I do want to give some shout outs to a few pages that people listening to this conversation may find interested in following. As I said, the first one, Dr. Joel Burvell. He's a medical doctor who really does an amazing job breaking down high level scientific and medical information to make it relevant for you. Especially those who are Black and brown in the BIPOC communities. The second person, really take a look at Dr. Raquel Martin. She is someone who specializes in the thinking and the mind and cognitive approaches to not just health, but just what it is to be a human being. And
every bit of that's new for me, so you're going to make me a lot cooler. I appreciate it. I know our listeners will appreciate it. You were the guy who introduced me to Snarky Puppy. Is that right? Back in the day.
Oh, your memory is impeccable. It's amazing. I'm going to have the NIH do a study on your brain, man. Like, you remember things that I'm like, yeah, I did. Wow.
Well, Dr. Michael Forde, I hope everybody checks out your social media content and follows your journey. But thank you for this conversation. I know it's going to be helpful as we're all doing this work together. So I appreciate you. I look forward to catching up with you again somewhere else down the road.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.